Long before the name Gollum was ever spoken, before the darkness beneath the mountains, before the long years that would pass without sun or sky, there was another life, a quieter one. Smeagol lived among a small people who did not wander far from the river. They were not great in number, nor did they seek to be known beyond the lands they called their own. Their homes were set near the banks, where the water moved slowly and the ground remained soft beneath their feet. The river was not something they crossed often. It was something they lived beside. It shaped their days without demanding them. Fish were taken from it, water drawn from it, and in its steady movement, there was a sense that nothing needed to change. The banks were worn smooth in places where many feet had passed, though no path was ever made fully clear. The land remained as it had been, not altered, only used. Smeagol moved within this life without standing apart from it. He was not known beyond those who lived near him, not spoken of in ways that would carry his name further than the river itself. And yet, within that small world, he remained present. He was curious, not in a way that brought him into trouble, not in a way that disturbed others, only in the quiet sense of noticing more than was often said aloud. He would walk along the water longer than most, pause where others would pass, look beneath the surface, as though something more might be seen there, even when nothing moved. The others did not question this. There was no reason to. Each lived as they did, and what was different was not something that needed to be changed. The days passed without measure. There was no need to count them. Morning came, evening followed, and between them, life remained simple, unbroken. Smeagol did not think of what lay beyond the river. He did not wonder what stood further than the lands he knew. There was no reason to. What was near was enough. The trees, the water, the quiet voices of those who lived as he did. Nothing pressed against him from beyond. Nothing called him forward. He remained where he was. And in that, there was no sense of lack, no thought that something more was needed. There were moments when the river grew still, when its surface reflected the sky so clearly that it seemed to hold something beyond itself. Smeagol would watch these moments longer than most, not searching, not expecting, only observing, as though the stillness itself was enough. And in those moments, there was nothing that suggested what would come. No sign, no change. Only the quiet continuation of what had always been. Among those who lived beside the river, there were few bonds that stood apart. Life did not often call for distinction. It moved quietly, and those within it remained close without needing to define how or why. But there were some who walked together more often than others. Smeagol and Deagol were among them. They did not speak of their closeness. There was no need to name it. It was simply understood in the way they moved through their days. They walked the same paths along the riverbanks, sat in the same places where the ground dipped near the water, shared the same quiet hours where nothing needed to be said. Deagol did not linger as Smeagol did. He did not pause for long moments over still water. He moved more lightly through the day, less drawn to what lay beneath or beyond. And yet, he did not leave Smeagol to his quiet observations. He remained, not out of duty, not out of thought, only because it was natural to do so. There was no imbalance between them, no sense that one followed the other. They walked side by side, each within their own way of being. The river remained the center of their days, There were times when they would sit at its edge, watching the movement of water without speaking, not waiting for something to happen, not expecting change, only allowing the time to pass as it would. Deagol would sometimes cast a line into the water, not with urgency, not with focus that required attention, more as something to do within the quiet. Smeagol would watch. Not always the line, not always the water, but something within it, something not easily seen. There were moments when Deagol would speak, small things, observations of the day, of what had been done, of what might be done later. Not always responding, but present. There was no need for more. Their lives did not call for complexity. There were no choices that carried weight, no paths that required careful thought. Each day moved into the next without distinction, without change that needed to be marked. And within this, their bond remained unquestioned, unchanged. The others around them did not notice anything beyond what was already known. There was nothing unusual in how they moved together. Nothing that set them apart, because in a life where little changed, there was little that needed to stand out. And yet, it was in this quiet closeness that something would one day shift, not because of what they were, but because of what would come. The river did not change, the land did not alter, the days did not grow heavier, and still, something had already begun. Not in them, not yet, only in the world beyond their knowing. Something moving slowly, quietly, toward them. The day did not begin differently from the others. There was no change in the air, no sign within the river, no shift in the land that might have suggested that anything beyond the ordinary would take place. The sky remained clear. The water moved, as it always had, and Smeagol and Deagol walked together, as they had done many times before. There was no purpose that set this day apart, no task that called them forward, only the quiet continuation of what had always been. They came to a part of the river where the water ran deeper. The bank dipped slightly, and the current, though still gentle, moved with more weight beneath the surface. Deagol stepped forward, not with thought, not with intention beyond the moment, and as he moved, the ground beneath him gave way. The edge softened, and he fell into the water. There was no alarm, no cry that carried beyond the place where it happened, only the sudden break of the surface, and then the quiet closing of it again. Smeagol remained where he stood, watching, not rushing forward, not yet. The water did not churn, it did not resist. It simply held. Deagol did not rise at once. He moved beneath the surface, drawn downward not by force, but by the depth itself. And there, in the stillness beneath the river, something caught his sight. Not light, not movement, only a shape, small, resting where it had not been disturbed. He reached for it, not knowing what it was, not seeking anything beyond the moment. His hand closed around it, and in that moment, something passed, not through the water, not through the world around him, but within. A quiet awareness, a sense that what he held was not empty, not ordinary. He did not understand it. He did not question it. He only held it. And then he rose. The surface broke again, quietly. The water closed behind him, and he stepped back onto the bank. Smeagol looked at him, at his hand, at what he carried. There was no immediate change, No shift that could be clearly seen, only a stillness, a moment that did not move forward. "What have you found?" The words were not urgent, not sharp, only present. Diago did not answer at once. He looked at what he held, turned it slightly in his fingers. The ring caught the light, though there was little of it. It did not shine brightly. It did not call attention to itself. And yet, it remained, seen. "I found it," he said. Nothing more. The words did not explain. They did not need to, because what had been found did not require explanation. Not yet. Smeagol stepped closer. Not quickly, not with sudden movement. Only enough to see. The ring did not appear different from any other. It was small, plain, unmarked by anything that would give it meaning. And yet, something in it did not pass unnoticed. Not to him, not in the way that other things passed. He looked at it longer than was needed, longer than such an object would normally hold his attention. And in that moment, something shifted. Not in the world, not in the river, only within him, a thought. Quiet, unformed, but present. The day did not change. The river continued. The light remained soft upon the water, and yet what had been found did not settle as other things did. It remained between them, unspoken, but no longer unnoticed. The moment did not break. It did not rise into something sudden or loud. It remained as it was, quiet, held between them. Diago still stood by the river, the water settling behind him as though nothing had disturbed it. The ring rested in his hand, small and unchanged in appearance, turning slightly as his fingers moved without thought. Smeagol did not step back. He did not look away. His attention remained, not fixed in the way of urgency, but held, as though something had taken its place within him and would not move aside. The ring did not call to him, not in voice, not in sound, but it did not pass from his thoughts. It remained there, where other things would have faded, as something that should not be left behind. Diago did not seem to notice this. He looked at the ring as one might look at any object newly found, with curiosity, without weight, without any sense that it carried meaning beyond the moment. "I found it," he said again, though no question had been asked. The words did not reach Smeagol in the same way they might have before. They did not settle. They did not remain as simple words. Something within them shifted, not in meaning, but in how they were held. "You found it." The thought did not form fully. It did not need to. It was enough that it remained. Smeagol stepped closer, not with haste, not with force, only enough to stand near, close enough to see the ring, without distance. "It is a birthday gift," he said. The words came quietly, without anger, without demand, as though they had always been true. Diago looked at him. There was no understanding in his expression that matched the words. "It is not your birthday," he answered. His voice remained simple, unchanged. There was no tension in it, no sense that anything had shifted between them. But something had, not in the air, not in the place where they stood, only within Smeagol. The ring remained in Gol's hand, still, unclaimed, and yet not free. The thought that it had begun did not leave. It did not lessen. It did not pass as other thoughts might have. It remained, and with it a quiet certainty that it should not remain where it was, that it did not belong there, that it should be held, not by him, by Smeagol. There was no anger in this, no rise of emotion, only a shift, a movement from what had been accepted to what was now seen differently. Smeagol turned slightly, as though the moment had passed, as though nothing had changed. But Smeagol did not turn. He did not step back. The stillness held, and within it something crossed, a line that could not be seen, not marked, not named, but passed. His hand moved, not quickly, not with force at first, only reaching. Smeagol resisted, not with anger, not with strength beyond what was needed, only with confusion, a movement that did not understand what it was answering. The struggle did not rise into noise. It did not carry beyond the place where it happened. It remained low, close, contained. The river did not change. The trees did not move. The world did not answer. And within that quiet, the moment ended. Smeagol did not rise again. The water received him once more, and this time it did not return him. Smeagol stood alone, the ring now in his hand. It did not shine. It did not change. It remained as it had been, and yet nothing was the same. Nothing changed at once. There was no moment where Smeagol looked upon himself and saw something different. No sudden awareness that what had been done could not be undone. The river continued as it always had. The land remained. The sky did not darken. And yet, something within him had begun. He did not return to the place by the water, not because he feared it, not because he wished to avoid it, only because there was no reason to go back. What had happened did not call him there again. It did not pull at him. It remained where it had been, and he moved away from it. The ring stayed with him, not held tightly, not examined again and again, only kept, carried, as though it belonged, as though it had always been his. He did not speak of it, not to others, not even within his own thoughts in a way that gave it form, but it remained present. Always, the days did not change in their shape. Morning came, evening followed. The river moved. The others lived as they always had, and Smeagol remained among them. At first, there was no difference that could be clearly seen. He walked the same paths, sat in the same places, listened to the same voices, but something in him did not settle as it once had. The quiet moments, which had once passed without thought, began to hold something more, a sense of watching. Not outward, not toward others, but inward. As though his attention had turned towards something that did not leave him, he found himself returning to the ring, not always by touch, not always by sight, but by thought. It remained there, even when his hands were empty. Even when he moved through his day as before, it did not press, it did not demand, but it did not fade. The others began to notice small changes, not in his form, not in his voice, only in the spaces between. Where he had once listened, he now seemed less present. Where he had once remained quietly among them, he now withdrew. Not fully, not in a way that could be named, only slightly, enough to be felt, though not easily spoken. There were moments when he spoke more than before, not with clarity, not with purpose, only with a tone that did not settle, words that did not carry the same quiet as they once had. They came and passed quickly, leaving nothing behind. And then he would fall silent again, longer than before. The ring remained, always. It did not leave him, not in thought, not in presence. And with it, something began to grow, not strong, not clear, only constant. A sense that what he held mattered more than what surrounded him, that it should not be shared, that it should not be seen, not because others would take it, but because it was his. The thought did not rise sharply. It did not become a decision. It remained beneath all things, quiet, unspoken, but unchanging. The life he had known did not end. It continued, but he no longer moved within it as he once had. Something in him had shifted away from it, not completely, but enough. Enough that the distance between him and the others began to grow. Not in steps, not in place, but in presence. And this distance did not return. It remained as the ring remained. The distance did not remain unnoticed, not forever. Those who lived beside the river did not speak of it at first. What had changed was not clear enough to name, and so it was left unspoken, as many things were. But over time, what had been only a quiet shift became something more difficult to ignore. Smeagol no longer moved as he once had among them. He remained near, but not within. His attention did not rest where it had before. His voice, when he used it, did not carry the same ease. There were moments when he spoke sharply, without reason that others could understand, and moments when he said nothing at all, even when spoken to. The ring remained hidden, not shown, not shared, and yet something of it seemed to reach beyond where it was kept, not seen, but felt. A sense that something was held too closely, that something had taken a place it should not have. The others did not know what it was, but they felt its presence in him. And slowly, without decision, without conflict, they began to step away. Not all at once, not together, only in small ways. Less time spent beside him. Fewer words spoken, longer silences left unfilled. Smeagol did not follow them. He did not call them back. He remained where he was, but the space around him grew. And with it, something within him settled further into itself. There came a point when he no longer belonged among them, not because he had been cast out in anger, not because he had chosen to leave, only because the place he held there had no longer remained. And so he moved, not far at first, only away from the places where others gathered, towards quieter ground, toward spaces where the land did not carry voices, where nothing was expected. The ring remained, and with it, the quiet certainty that he did not need anything beyond it. The world that had once been enough no longer held him in the same way. It did not call him back. It did not reach toward him, and he did not return. The land began to change as he moved. The open banks of the river gave way to narrower paths. The light grew less steady, the trees thicker, the ground less certain beneath his feet. But he did not turn. He did not look for a way back, because there was no sense that he had left something behind, only that he had moved where he now belonged. The hills rose. The earth opened in places where darkness settled more deeply, and there, beneath stone and shadow, he found what once more the light did not reach, where the air did not move as it did above, where time did not pass in ways that could be felt. He entered without hesitation, not because he sought it, but because it did not resist him. The darkness did not press against him. It did not close around him. It simply remained as he remained. Within it, the last connection to what had been before grew faint, not broken, but no longer present in the way it had been. The river was no longer near. The voices of others no longer reached him. The world above did not follow. And he did not return to it. In the darkness beneath the mountains, there are no days to follow one another, no light to mark the passing of time, no sky to change, only stillness. And within that stillness, Smeagol remained. At first, there may have been some memory of what had come before, not clear, not held in full, only fragments. The sound of water moving in open air, the feel of ground beneath the sun, voices that had once been near, but these did not remain long. Not because they were taken, but because there was nothing to hold them in place. They faded, as all things do when they are not returned to. The darkness did not trouble him. It did not close around him as something unfamiliar. It became what surrounded him, and in time, it became what he knew. The cave did not change. Its walls remained. Its passages did not shift. Its silence did not break. And within that, Smeagol moved, not with purpose, not toward anything, only from one place to another, as the need arose. Food was taken when it was found, not sought far, not hunted with effort, only gathered when it appeared. There was no urgency, no sense of hunger as something that must be answered at once, only the quiet continuation of what allowed him to remain. The ring stayed with him, always, closer now than before, not hidden, not set aside, but held, felt, as though it were not separate from him. He did not question it. He did not consider what it was. He did not remember how it had come to him. It simply remained, and in that it became all that was constant. There were no voices in the cave, no sounds that came from beyond, only the small movements of water, the shifting of stone, and the quiet sounds that came from him. At first, perhaps, he did not speak. There was no need. But over time, something began. Not speech as it had once been, not words shaped for others to hear, only sounds. Low, soft, repeated, as though something within him needed to continue, even when nothing was there to receive it. And in time, these sounds became all that remained of what had once been his voice. He did not remember his name, not clearly, not in a way that held meaning. The name Smeagol did not return to him. It did not rise. It did not remain. Only something else, something smaller, something broken, something that came from the sounds he made, rather than the name he had been given. And so, he became what those sounds shaped, not by choice, not by change, only by what remained. The years did not pass, or if they did not gather. There was no count, no measure, no sense of how long he had remained beneath the stone, only that he had, and that he would continue. The world above did not reach him. It did not call. It did not change what he was, and he did not look toward it, because there was nothing in him that remembered it fully. Only the ring remained, and the quiet presence of himself within the dark. Nothing in the darkness had ever been taken from him, not in the way that could be felt, not in the way that could be named. The cave remained, the silence remained, and the ring remained. Always, there had been no change that broke what he had become, no moment where something had been removed, only the quiet continuation of what had already settled. And because of that, there was no expectation that anything would change, no thought that something could be lost. The ring had always been there, held, felt, present, beyond all else. He did not guard it, not actively, not with thought or intention. There was no need. Nothing had ever reached toward it. Nothing had ever come close enough to take it. And so it remained without question, until one day, though the word day had no meaning where he was, something moved differently. Not loudly, not with force, only enough to be felt. A presence, unfamiliar, not part of the cave, not something that had always been there. He did not understand it. He did not name it, but he felt it. A movement where there had been stillness, a quiet disturbance in what had never changed. He did not rise at once. He did not search. He remained, as he always had. And yet, something within him had begun to shift, not toward action, but toward awareness. The ring, which had never left him, which had always been held close, was not in his hand. Not in that moment, not where it had always been. There was no instant understanding, no sudden realization, only a pause, a stillness that held something different. He reached for it, without urgency, without fear, only as something that had always been done. And it was not there. The absence did not arrive as shock, not at first. It did not break what he was. It did not call him into movement. It remained as a quiet difference, something that should not be, but was. He searched then, slowly, without direction, without knowing where to look. His hands moved across the ground, across the stone, across the places where he had been, where he had remained, but nothing answered, nothing returned. The cave did not change. It did not reveal anything. Remained as it always had, still, silent, unmoved. And the ring did not return. Time did not pass, or if it did not bring understanding with it. Only the absence remained, growing clearer, more certain. The thing that had always been there was not. And in that, something within him shifted again, not as it had before, not slowly, not quietly, but in a way that could not settle. A need, not fully formed, not understood, but present. He moved more quickly now, not with direction, not with purpose that could be followed, only in response to what was no longer there. The cave no longer held him as it had. The stillness no longer settled around him. It remained, but it no longer contained him, because something within him no longer remained still. The ring was gone, and with it, something that had been part of him was no longer present, not taken in a way he had seen, not lost in a way he could understand. Only gone, and that was enough. The stillness did not return, not in the way it had been before. The cave remained unchanged, its walls unmoving, its silence unbroken, but it no longer held him as it once had. Something within him had begun to move. not with direction, not with understanding, only with the absence that could not be settled. The place where he had remained for so long no longer contained him, not because it had changed, but because he had. The ring was no longer there, and in its absence, the quiet that had once been enough no longer remained. He moved through the passages, not searching as one who knows where to look, not following a path, only moving, as though movement itself might return what had been lost. The cave did not answer. It did not shift. It did not reveal anything that had not already been there. And so he continued, from one place to another, without measure, without end. There was no rest in it, not because he could not stop, but because stopping did not return what was gone. The need remained, constant, unchanged. He followed nothing, and yet he followed something. A sense that what had been taken was not beyond reach, that it existed somewhere, that it could be found. This thought did not form clearly. It did not become a plan, only a direction without shape. And so he left the place beneath the mountains, not in a moment, not as a decision, only as something that happened. Step by step, through darkness that slowly gave way to something less complete. The air changed, the silence shifted. The world, which had once been far from him, began to return in fragments, not as it had been, not fully, but enough to move through, enough to continue. He did not recognize it as the world he had known, not clearly, not in a way that brought memory, only as something that was not the cave, something that allowed movement beyond what had once held him. He followed nothing, and yet he continued, across ground that was not familiar, through places that did not remain. There was no destination, no place that called him to it. Only the absence, always the absence. And in time, though time itself had no meaning to him, this movement did not lessen. It did not resolve. It did not return what had been lost. It remained, as he remained, unfinished. There was a time when his name had meaning, when it was spoken by others, when it belonged to something that stood within the world, among those who lived and moved and remained together. That time did not return, not in memory, not in form, only in something distant, like a shape beneath water that cannot be reached. Smeagol was no longer a name that held him. It did not rise within him. It did not remain. What he had become did not carry it. And yet, it was not entirely gone. Something of it remained, not as a thought, not as something he could recall, only as a quiet trace, a part of what had been that had not fully disappeared. His movement did not follow a path that could be known. He did not return to the river. He did not seek the places where he had once lived, because they no longer existed within him in a way that could be found. The world had changed, or perhaps it had not. It made no difference. He moved within it without belonging to it, as he had once moved within the darkness beneath the mountains. Only now, the darkness was not complete. There were moments of light, moments where the sky could be seen, where the air moved more freely, but these did not settle within him. They passed, as all things passed. Nothing remained, not in the way it once might have. The ring was gone, and in its absence, something had been left behind. Not emptiness, not silence, but something that could not be filled. Something that did not allow stillness. And so he continued, not searching in the way one searches for what is known, not remembering in the way one recalls what has been, only moving, carried by something that did not end. There were times, though they were not marked, when something within him seemed to pause. Not fully, not clearly, only enough that something else might be felt. A faint sense of what had once been, a quiet echo, not shaped into memory, not held long enough to be understood, only present, and then gone. These moments did not change him. They did not return what had been lost. They did not restore what had faded. They remained only as something that could not fully disappear. And in that, something of Smeagol endured, not whole, not clear, but not entirely gone. The world did not stop for him. It did not change its course. It continued, as it always had, and he moved within it, as he always would, not as he had been, not as something new, only as what remained. If you'd like to remain in these quiet stories, there are more waiting for you. You can stay and let another begin. And if you return often, you can follow the channel. Good night.